without really identifying where's the problem and where's the problem, do we need to step in? So, I mean, look at the polls. I mean, I don't think the American people want an expansion. And if they hear that, I mean, even if it's so we don't care, they will be upset if there's an issue they don't care about leading to a huge expansion of government.
Jim?
Yeah, just comment on the polls because obviously we run some ourselves. I think it is important, you know, and I think actually the administration is paying a good bit of attention to the results in those polls right now. I think they indicate that the public wants to see the very type of regulatory humility that Eddie was talking about a second ago here. But I'd also add that frankly, you know, Peter Hart did a poll, he does the Wall Street Journal poll, that came out, I believe, in September, August or September. It tracks very closely with the Rasmussen results, and it basically showed that, you know, that 60% of Americans don't feel that they need government regulation in the internet space, and only about 20% wanted it. But here's the important point. Of that 20%, okay, half of those people, frankly, were supportive of government regulation for far different reasons than are used to support net neutrality. They wanted the government regulation in there because of privacy concerns, malware, viruses, parental control, dangers to their kids, things of this nature. Okay, so even the ones that supported more government regulation, in that 20%, half of those wanted it for a very different reason, the proponents of net neutrality. So the disparity between those who want regulation in this space and those who feel that the market is progressing very fine, thank you, you know, is even more stark. And I think it's real important. And those are pretty you know, large samples and surveys. I think the questions are very similar, and I think they're, you know, broadly stated. They are reflecting a public mood right now that I think is profound.
Roger?
I would just caution that relying on polls for issues like net neutrality is perilous at best. I mean, this is a very complicated topic, and a lot of people in this room are very into it and focused and know all about it. But I think the widespread public, you really can frame the question in a lot of different ways. You know, if you want Verizon to tell you which websites you can visit, get a different answer than the answer is in Rasmussen. I'm not saying that the poll wasn't valid or the hard research wasn't valid, but on topics of incredibly complex technical issues like this, but we have expert agencies to try to make decisions. You might disagree with it, but we think this is an example of smart regulation where they have high-level rules to avoid interfering in the market, and then they act if they need to. But it really is to set rules of the road. One other comment just on investment. Everybody talks about the investment issue like there's only 3 or 4 companies that invest in America or innovate. And there's this whole other ecosystem of companies that rely on an open internet to innovate and create all kinds of applications that consumers love. We can't ignore that. And if you look at analyst reports that came out after the order, the major investment banks, you know, overwhelmingly said this is a hiccup, this is very light, it removes overhang, like Jim said. I mean, I think this is a really good example of smart regulation where they took care of something to protect openness so that companies that innovate can continue to do so and invest in that. But they also are you know, minimizing the impact on companies that are worried about.
On the investment point, I refer you to a really great posting by Anna Maria Kovacs that just came out. She did a fantastic analysis of revenue, earnings, investment. She broke it all down for anyone who really has the business degree to really figure out how she gets to her conclusions. Her conclusion, it's not only that the investment will be reduced, but the SEC is putting its fingers on the scale and shifting where that money will go. Right? So she concludes, over time, the order represents a direct transfer of wealth from broadband access providers to those whose content rides over the network. That means it provides those who ride the network with strategically vital financial weapons to use against broadband providers, who in many cases are their competitors. To put it another way, it takes all the bargaining power away from the broadband provider, who is making a very large investment for low returns, and giving it to the content provider. So, I mean, I commend you to look at this, and she's got some really good analysis here. She's not the only one saying this. So, I think
the difficulty of this investment argument is that when folks come to conferences like this and they see all the investment over the last few years, they wonder where's the overhang.
Well, then where's the problem?
But there was, I think the point is that there's regulatory overhang that was clouding us. Anyway, Rick.
No, I just want to say, I think there's actually a very important poll taken back in the mid-90s which was the first time consumers had the ability to use an open network called the internet. And I know very well about it because I was at the time representing some of the smaller so-called walled garden companies like CompuServe and Prodigy. And the consumers overwhelmingly voted with their feet. They embraced the open internet. And I think one of the salient things that's happened in the past couple of years is we've now had, at least among all of us here in the panel, an appreciation that an open network, open internet is positive for pretty much everybody in the quote-unquote ecosystem. The chief challenge is what do you do with that? Do you need government regulation or not? But at least this notion that we're all embracing openness as a positive virtue for everybody, whether it's the content providers, application providers, consumers, and the broadband providers, that's a step forward anyway in the debate, which I think has been useful.
I think we have time for one more question.